Are you a woman in the corporate world, striving to break barriers, challenge unconscious bias, and lead the way for women in leadership roles globally? If so, this is the podcast for you. Introducing Leading Ladies Who Lunch. The lunch hour is usually the time when colleagues get together for real, honest conversations about work, life, and everything in between. In each episode of Leading Ladies Who Lunch, we'll delve into insightful discussions and share actionable strategies to help you navigate corporate life. Co-hosted by me, Cece George, a leadership development architect and inspirational speaker. I'm thrilled to share my experience and expertise on leadership, mentorship, and organizational intelligence to help you own your career.
And me, Rachel Lowndes, CEO and founder, imposter syndrome expert, and mindset coach at Rachel Lowndes Coaching and Consulting. Passionate about helping women conquer imposter syndrome and unleash their inner confidence to get the recognition and promotions they deserve.
Jam-packed with insightful conversations, expert advice, and inspiring stories from a diverse group, we'll explore how to overcome obstacles, shatter those glass ceilings, and build unshakable mindsets to unlock your true potential. So whether you're sipping a coffee or enjoying a meal at your desk, tune in for a no-host bar lunchtime chat. Episodes will be dropped every 2 weeks. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Leading Ladies Who Lunch, empowering women, one conversation at a time.
We are so excited for today's episode. Welcome back, everyone, to the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. We are thrilled to be joined by Claire Wasserman. Claire is a speaker, author, and founder of Ladies Get Paid, a newsletter, podcast, and a coaching practice dedicated to helping women embrace their worth and activate their potential. With a master's certificate in financial psychology, Claire has traveled the country teaching thousands of women how to negotiate millions of dollars in raises, start businesses, and advocate for themselves in the workplace. She was also chosen as Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 Most Powerful Women and has spoken at places such as Harvard Business School, Facebook, NASA, and the United Nations. She's also appeared on Good Morning America and in the New York Times, among other places. Wow, I feel like I broke a sweat just reading your bio.
Listen, the reality behind all of it is I was constantly having some kind of like existential crisis, burnout, like that's, the outside look. The inside look is always a little bit different.
But that is quite the impressive resume. I'm so looking forward to today's chat. Welcome.
I love the honesty there, Claire. Like, yeah, it all sounds great, but behind the scenes, chaos.
Yeah.
And that is the reality.
Yeah,
That is the reality, isn't it? Yeah.
Listen, I'm calling myself a recovering girl boss now because all of those accomplishments, I stand by them. I'm proud of them. I did them. I own them. But I also think that I had very bad work habits, a lot of hustle culture, a lot of, just like work till you burn out kind of thing. I've got 2 kids now. We're in 2025. Like I'm just another person. So I think the goal is not the accomplishments, but it's, it's not the success. It's how do you not sacrifice yourself to get there?
Amen.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful message.
Yeah.
That's so true. We're as I'm a business owner too, and like as we're kind of conditioned to have this bro hustle culture, aren't we? Around like must do more, must do more, must do more, and actually, like the payoff of that is like you just said, is you burn out, you suffer, your family suffers, and actually, it's about how do you balance that out. So yeah, I'm glad you started off with that because I think it's important for people to hear.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. It's always like, how did you get there, right? So I always want to put a disclaimer on all of those achievements where I hope it inspires people, but I hope what inspires them more is the journey to get there. Because that's also where you spend most of your time, right? In building the actual thing.
Absolutely. That's a great place to start. I was doing a little bit of homework and reading up more about your background, but it seems like you've been a self-advocacy pro since you were a kid. I mean, for those of us who might be a bit shy, I think I'm a recovering shy person. Can you tell us more about your journey from your early days in self-advocacy and sort of how you've what your best advice is for speaking up for yourself and advocating,
Yeah.
especially at work.
I wonder if are you referencing the story of when I got into the Broadway musical when I was 8?
Yes.
Maybe? Okay. So long story short, so I told my parents when I was a very little girl, I said, "I am going to be on Broadway." And they said, "We'll send you to camp. We'll send you to a theater camp, but we're not gonna let you take tap lessons." And that was the compromise. Well, I got scouted at the camp and I had the opportunity to audition for a musical, a Broadway musical with Paul Simon. And the very long story short is I had a terrible audition, but here's what I did really well. I asked really good questions. I asked questions about the relationship that I have with my brother, the character on stage. Like I wanted to do really well. And I was very thoughtful and I guess kind of funny and charismatic in how I did it. And Paul Simon hired me on the spot. And it set me up though for the rest of my life until relatively recently in believing that whatever I put my mind to, I could get, which is a very ego driven thing. It makes you feel like you have way more control over the world than you actually do. And I'm sure we'll get into some of the obstacles I've experienced as well. But what I have had to kind of toe the line is you advocate for yourself. You do everything you can within your command to get what you want. And you also have to let go because there are so many other factors at play that are related to whether you get the job or get the yes in the audition or make the money you want. But it did teach me that asking good questions, being charismatic, these things count and they really do. I think talent is relatively minimal, actually. And I think charisma is maybe more important. Connections, relationships, those are the things that open up opportunities for you. Then you have to learn how to walk through the door, of course. And that's what I feel like naturally comes to me, but it doesn't come to a lot of people. And I've been very interested to see, can I teach skills that may come naturally to me? Is it something someone else can learn? And the answer is 1,000% yes. Salary negotiation, speaking up for yourself, having a great job interview, presenting on a stage, these are all learned skills and require practice and cultivation and strategy and mindset and all that. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that up, but that's definitely, I've been that way since I was born out of the womb.
100%. I love that. And talking of questions, actually, I was reading your website and I love the bit where it said, you talk about the story of how you started this whole movement that you've created, which is, the question was, whose wife are you?
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Like, what a question. Right? Now, clearly, that was the starting point for you creating such an impactful community, which is incredible. And I can imagine so many of our listeners have also experienced something similar, along those lines of like, and often feeling stuck by societal limitations, like whose wife are you and, who are you here with and whose PA are you and all that kind of thing. So tell us a bit more about the starting point, that particular starting point and how that led to what you've created today, because obviously that was the catalyst.
Yeah. So I was at a work conference, very fancy party, first night. I was working at the time for a job site called workingnotworking.com and head of marketing, walked into the party and this older guy, first thing out of his mouth is, whose wife are you? As if I was not my own person coming with a business. And it really just set off a full week of interactions where I was just not being taken seriously. I mean, everything from a group of men standing together, they'd all shake each other's hands and not shake mine or not give me eye contact, to the way that they were objectifying women. Here's the thing though, it was nothing new. Okay. It was something I had experienced for many, many years I was in the advertising industry. But for some reason, I
Me too.
received it differently this time. And I think part of the reason I received it differently was because when I went into the women's restroom, the ladies' room, which now I'm realizing, maybe that helped inform what I called ladies get paid. It was the ladies' room. What I noticed in there was in stark contrast to the energy I was feeling out in the rest of the party, which was a group of women who were all exchanging business cards and exchanging lipsticks. And it was just this vibe of women who were there to do business with each other. I had never yet experienced that. I'd only really been in male dominated, where
Mm.
they had the power. I never was in a room where I felt women had the power, and not in that way, and not in a pay it forward sort of collaborative, again, vibe energy in that restroom. And after that, I wrote an essay that was me unpacking all of the ways that I had denied these microaggressions, which, by the way, the word microaggression in 2015, when this happened, that wasn't a word that was really used. I mean, there's such a different vocabulary, different way of understanding this stuff now, post Me Too, etc. So at the time, this was pretty new, pretty radical, it felt, to recognize, wow, so many inappropriate things had happened that I never stopped to say that was wrong.
Mm.
But also I understand why I didn't, right? Like, I
Yeah.
didn't have any power at the time. I was up and coming in my career. Like, what would I have done with acknowledging? It's sometimes, ignorance is bliss to a certain extent. But
Mm.
after that experience in Cannes and in this event, I was like, I couldn't unsee it anymore. And it bothered me. And it bothered me enough to start researching. I remember Googling women and the wage gap. And I was discovering these statistics that, again, I was not seeing people talk about in a mainstream way. And it was like a rock in my shoe. I could not stop until I got it out. And that was the beginning of, what can I possibly do to combat something this systemic as an individual? And it took me probably a year and a half to, experiment and quit my job. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. But what that story does is it reminded me of all these other experiences that I had had.
Yeah.
And it just, I was ready I had courage now. I had more power. I could actually maybe do something about it. That was the difference.
That
Wow.
is so interesting around what you say about the micro. I mean, I worked in advertising too, so I do kind of understand. I mean, Can is the most bro thing ever, right? And I mean, everyone's drinking rosé and just like putting sunshine up their butts. But also like you really just, I mean, coming through advertising in the late 90s through the early 2000s, up to now. I mean, you just accepted that those kind of conversations were what was normal. I didn't know any different. I did not know any different. I didn't know it wasn't okay to talk to me like that or say
Mhm.
things like that to me. And so I think what you did was obviously very like life changing for a lot of people, because suddenly you're giving gravitas to like what we're probably thinking deep down is like, I don't really like that, but I don't know how to voice it.
Right.
Right.
And right. And then you've kind of given it a platform to say, hey, guess what? This isn't okay.
Mhm.
And so I imagine that moved quite quickly in terms of like, from that moment.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing all that up, because my solution was not, here's what we do, but rather, let's talk about it. Okay. So
Mm.
I would host these town halls, these kind of open forums for women to come and talk about their relationship with work and money, basically. There would be sub themes. So, one time it would be imposter syndrome, for example. But the whole point was, we are not here to learn from, quote, experts. Okay. It's peer to peer sharing. And I would have certain women share first to get it started. But it was really a group discussion of, we all have something to learn from one another. There's not one right way to do this. It's complicated. It can be. There's nuances that need to be respected. Privilege is very much a part of this conversation. And it grew super quickly. I mean, now we've got 55,000 people in a Slack group who've exchanged over 4 million messages.
Wow.
But within the first year and a half, I ended up going across the country to 19 cities, hosting these town halls. Very interesting. I mean, one night I would be in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the next night in Detroit, Michigan. Again,
Wow.
same theme, money. Come and share. What does money mean to you? And of course, it was a portal to so much more. It really opened up a whole, to what you said, it gave a voice to what people were already thinking. And I get the same email after every event, which was, I thought I was the only one. It's the same email, didn't matter where I was, same email, thought I was the only one. And then it was, okay, next step. Now we got to do something, right? We talked about it. What are you doing on Monday? And that's where I really started to develop professional development that felt personal. That it wasn't just about the information people were receiving. It was acknowledging how they felt about the information. What was there going to, what emotional resistance they might have to following through on asking for more, investing their money. It unraveled so much, which is why my joke now is, get my book, but also get a therapist.
I love that.
So,
Very practical advice too.
don't hold me responsible. No, I just don't want to be, try not to be sued.
I'm already feeling so energetic by everything that you're saying. But one thing that I can't help but think about, because I'm picturing myself in your shoes at that time, experiencing everything that you've already said, going, oh yeah, I can think about that time or this time. But then the one thing that I'm wondering about, and maybe you can talk through this, is how did your own imposter syndrome come to the forefront and present a wrench in your plan, or bring you down? And how did you get through those difficult days where you're like, who am I to go out there talking about this stuff?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I wasn't presenting myself as an expert, even though I was starting to be asked, like, will you be on a panel about the wage gap? And I'm like, let me Google that real quick. Like, I'm not a professor, or I didn't study economics. I mean, I did study sociology, so that actually makes a lot of sense now. I was the host of the conversation. That's the thing. I was facilitating dialogue amongst other people. I was also hiring other coaches, other career coaches, to come and teach follow-up workshops. So I felt very comfortable in kind of the master of ceremonies role. I also was really angry about the wage gap. And so my anger was greater than any insecurities I had, which were certainly there. But, as I go around telling everybody, it's not that you don't have fear. It's just that there's something greater than that fear that you introduce. So whether it's curiosity, or anger, right? So that was huge. I also had run a company before that failed. So I knew what not to do,
Okay.
in some ways. Wasn't totally my first rodeo. I'd also been itching to get back out there, right? A big reason I actually went to go work for the company that I did was because I wanted to learn, how do you run a company? How do you grow a company? And it was a community-based kind of company, right? So I didn't feel ready per se, but I felt I knew what I didn't know also, right? Like my ego had been put in its place before. I'd been humbled enough. So there was some kind of courage that actually came with that in getting back out there. I was itching for it.
Got it. Wow. I like what you said about the fear might have been there, but there was something more than the fear that
Yeah.
overpowered it,
Yeah.
that helped you continue on that road.
Yeah.
That's
For sure.
powerful, because that's something that people have to remember. Because when we think about doing something out of the box, the first thing you think about is, crap, how can I go out there and do this? There's already a million other people who do something similar. What's going to make me different? But I like the way you reframed it and repositioned that notion, is that,
Mhm.
yeah, but I'm curious to start something and see where it goes.
Yeah.
That takes the edge off of the overwhelming feeling of, I have to have it all figured out from day one.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew how I was going to make money. That I was very clear on, because I didn't know that with my first company. And so in my mind, it's not a business unless you know how your money is coming in, right? Otherwise it's a project.
Sure.
So I knew how I was going to make money, at least in the first steps. So that was good. But again, that anger around the wage gap, and I really looked for someone else to do this. I mean, I was searching for other women's groups, and yeah, there were women's groups that existed. Of course, there's career coaches, but no one at the time was speaking in my voice. And that's something that I really urge everyone out there, when you ask, well, how can I be original? Well, no one has your thumbprint, okay? Like, you are inherently original in your life experiences, all right? There. And if you have an urge to create something, chances are it's because you haven't seen what you want in the market already, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, you say, oh, well, that product's great. I don't want to make my own. Or I've read that book. It taught me everything. I don't want to write my own. So if you feel like you've really looked around and said, well, where is fill in the blank? Well, the fill in the blank is you. Like, it is how you do it. So I think it's way less about like what you're offering people and more about how you're offering it. I mean, that's the marketer in me, but I just, again, I knew how scary it is to run your own business. So I really did look to join other women's groups, and I just wasn't seeing anyone with the hashtag fuck the wage gap, which is what was which was my until I started to partner with more brands and be sponsored. That was how I began.
I love it. I love that. There's actually a CEO who runs an ocean here in Australia, and she stuck because it is International Women's Day coming up, and here in Australia we are pre-recording, obviously, just for our audience. And she actually can't stand the whole International Women's Day thing as well, and I'm in agreement. And she started a hashtag called "Fuck the Cupcakes" because
Oh, nice.
it's so good.
Love it.
Which is really like forthright about. So I love what you said about that. I mean, I think people, women particularly, being able to communicate their values so that they can get paid their worth is really difficult. So, like, what are the first steps that women in corporate who are struggling to get paid their worth can do or need to do to ensure that they do get paid their value and their worth? How can they do that?
I think it first starts with separating your worth as a human being from an employee in a system of capitalism. So let's not confuse that. This also helps remind us when we don't get what we want that, not that you don't take it personally, because of course, I mean, inherently, like, you have to take things personally if you care, but you have to also be able to objectively look at it and manage your feelings towards it. So that's where we begin. Then we say, all right, where is our case made? What is the foundation of the argument that we are going to present as if we are a lawyer? Okay. And by the way, this is not a you lose and I win. No, it's all about how an investment in me, the employee, is actually an investment in the company, which is true. Like,
It's a value exchange.
yeah,
Yeah.
value exchange, and that we are growing together, and it is about long-term growth, right? So when you invest more in my paycheck, that means I'm going to stay here long term because you've now made yourself competitive in the market. Well, you as the employee, are you competitive in the market? And the only way you can know that is by talking to real people at the competitor companies to where you currently are or where you want to work, because that's who they are looking at in terms of talent, right? That's why a lot of people get paid more who recently join a company. Oftentimes there's a pay discrepancy between those who've been there for a long time versus those who recently joined. And it's because they had to be poached. They were incentivized by this competitor company to join. Anyway, don't get me started on that because that contributes to the wage gap as well. But the point is, you should always be doing your research. Even if you're not looking for a new job, be aware of where you currently are within the market. There will be a range, by the way. It's not one golden number. But I'd like to know, why are you in the bottom of the range? And by the way, this means you're setting yourself up to learn from your employer or prospective employer. How did they determine this number? So a lot of the conversation ends up being, how did we all get here? How did you do your market research? Making the case that the work you've done impacts the business bottom line. Therefore, you should be on the higher end of the pay band. And if the answer is no from your company, well, I'd like to know why. And how do we make that change? Is it when the scope of responsibilities shifts? Is it you have to demonstrate X, Y, and Z metrics? Is there nothing to be done and the company is just not doing well? It's way more of an expansive conversation than you realize when you start making it about how did we all come to this number. Again, it's not just the market research, though. It's your own research, your own receipts that you bring of the work that you've done. Obviously, I can go into more detail, but that's a good place to begin, I think.
Yeah. I find that because I talk to a lot of women about, the fact that they feel undervalued, underpaid, and all that kind of thing. And one of the most common things is that they wait for the results to speak for themselves. And, self-promotion is so important in the workplace because you cannot wait for your results to speak for them. They don't have a voice. You have to voice them. And that is one way to elevate your position in the workplace, to demonstrate your value so that you can get promoted and paid more money, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think and that's actually something we talked about before. I know I mentioned it, having a success board, kind of like a vision board, but a list of all your accomplishments, especially ones that have quantitative value to it. So if something you're working on has achieved a 95% improvement in X, Y, and Z skills, then that should be on a board in front of you. So when you're talking to people, you can say with confidence, I am worth this because I've done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So that the numbers do tell a story.
Yeah, for sure. But the question I get asked a lot from the people that I coach is, well, we don't have the results yet. Can I still speak to it? And the answer is absolutely. If you are working on projects that will have an intended impact, which they will, otherwise what the company wouldn't have you work on this. You speak to the intended results. You can also use approximations, ballparks, no, it, and by
Also
the
the
way, it's
journey.
also time, right? Like you've saved time for the company, you've made things more efficient.
Mm.
There's so many ways you can slice and dice this. But the key is always don't wait. Like it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't have to be finished. But you have made traction, and you do need to speak to that. And by the way, a lot of women are in roles that don't have the opportunity to touch the bottom line. So for example, sales, that's a kind of an easy pitch. Like, oh, I brought in X dollars, I should, get paid Y. Whereas a lot of women roles, let's say more marketing, right? It's a little more abstract. So that's why the incumbent, it's really incumbent on us to be even more creative in how we tell the story. Paint the picture of how what you are working on will lead to. And a great way to reframe this is stop thinking of yourself as an employee, and instead you are a business that is pitching an investor on why they will get a return on what you are working on. When companies are going in to pitch investors, do you know how many of them have no results? Probably they just have ideas. They're just selling the dream, but they're painting the story with metrics, at least, right? They're saying, I understand how my role fits into the financial ecosystem. We're not just doing things for fun here. So when you can speak like that, that counts. Also, it's not just about, again, the end result with a perfect number.
Yeah, be an entrepreneur, not an employee. Because actually, right, the job of promotions happens every day. It's not like in your one-to-one review at the end of the year where you get that, let's set your goals and your KPIs. It's literally something you're doing every day. So, what you're talking about there is having those conversations with your managers about, like, here's where the project's at, blah, 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 because they don't know the every day, and you need to tell them, because their job of giving you a promotion means they also need to manage up into who should get a promotion. I mean, I was in a role that, you'll understand this, Claire. I was a traffic manager, right? So, internal project manager. Nothing I did actually made any. I didn't make money. I didn't bring money in. I didn't. I had no kind of metrics on the bottom line, but actually I did, because everything I did internally was about productivity. And so I didn't do any of my own self-promotion because I didn't understand that.
Right.
But for anyone who's even got an admin role, like, you do have an impact on the business, how it runs and how it makes money. So that's super important. You've done a lot of different things, right? I did go do a bit of a deep dive on you. And one of the things that really stood out for me, apart from that question around whose wife you, is getting sued by men's rights activists. And so I am fascinated by this story. Please tell us the story of what happened there. How did you get sued by men's
It's
rights?
outrageous. I know it sounds funny until you're sued by them. So so first and foremost, I was breaking the law, okay, but I thought it was fine because I felt like if I hosted events and I allowed men to come, well, these events were predicated on women feeling comfortable to be vulnerable. So in my mind, I thought by saying women and non-binary only, I was protecting the women. Well, there's a group out there called the National Coalition of Men who make it their job and their movement to find groups like mine and go and sue us. Everybody settles. They make a lot of money. And they targeted me in San Diego and Los Angeles. They sued not only Ladies Get Paid and me personally, but also a number of, we called them ambassadors. They were sort of paid volunteers, our sponsors, the hosts, the venue. It was this mess of a lawsuit that was very, very expensive. And guess what? It did two amazing things. More than two, but like two really amazing things. Number one, it eradicated any iota of imposter syndrome I had. Okay, I became extremely confident after this. I also want to be clear, I suffered a lot. Like, I tons of like sobbing on the floor, increasing my Lexapro, Ativan prescription. Like, this was not a good time, but good things came out of it. So number one, I actually gained a lot of confidence. And number two, I did a crowdfunding campaign and a ton of press for that crowdfunding campaign that ended up getting me the attention of a literary agent who got me an amazing book deal. So I write in my book, thank you to the men who sued me, because without you, this would not have been possible. So
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, it showed
It's
me. Listen,
amazing.
my feeling was this: they were going to win the battle because I was going to settle, but I had to win the war. Well, what was the war? To me, it was how do I leverage this? I have to leverage this, and it really presented itself as a marketing campaign. It was a cause for people to rally about, and it was absolute catnip for the press. So, I mean, it derailed our business, right? Like I started not focusing on some things that I would have focused on before, but I mean,
You
they
made
made the
lemonade.
money,
Those
yeah.
lemons, yeah.
It's amazing because you took one event and one experience that a lot of people, I think even myself included, I don't know how I would have handled that. I mean, that's a huge thing to go through, but you
Yeah,
took that as an opportunity. And that's what I love so much about your story. You have a lot of moments of taking something that could be perceived as a setback,
yeah.
Mhm.
using that as a way to propel yourself forward. That
Mm.
Yeah.
is phenomenally inspiring. I mean, I'm,
I refuse to just sit in the
whew,
suffering. Like, life is way too short. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to go through the suffering. I used to have a bad habit where I thought I could like skip the suffering. I could learn the lessons without the suffering and just sort of silver lining this all. No, that's just
sure.
avoiding the feelings. So you
Right,
really do have to like feel like shit for a while.
right.
But you just look at it and go, I mean, I teach this whole class on how to turn obstacles into opportunities. And I have this like 5-phase process. And one of it is asking the question of yourself going, what do I want? And how can I use this to help me get what I want? And that's not an easy question to answer because knowing what you want requires you to know who you are. And sometimes we can be confused about that. We're paying attention to what other people tell us we should be, etc. So, when I say this question, it's not like, oh, okay, let me just journal. I got it. Like it's going to be a process to figuring it out. But I don't just think, I know you can turn every bad thing into an opportunity because I literally have. And I've experienced really hard stuff beyond that. Like every facet of hard I have gone through in my life. Um, so every single hard thing led to every single fantastic thing in my life.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. I mean, I think that's such an important message to share with our listeners because it's very easy to, get buy into those BS stories about, well, it happened to me. This
Mhm.
has happened to me. I'm in trauma.
Yeah.
I'm not able to do this because of X, Y, and Z. And the fact is that we all experience adversity. Every single one of us experiences adversity. And it's really how you handle that adversity that matters, right? And you're demonstrating there that you've had massive setback after massive set. I mean, getting sued by men. First of all, just thinking about that whole thing is like as if the patriarchy hasn't had enough
Right?
control, and now they're coming after women's groups. I mean, how dare
Seriously.
they? But I mean, I do understand like equality and all that kind of thing, but still, but like coming over something so big and then actually being able to springboard off that to have two massive outcomes, knowing that it was exceptionally hard, but look at what I've turned that into.
Yeah.
Super inspiring for everybody. I mean, I feel super inspired by that. So yeah, I'm really
Listen,
glad.
I raised so much money off of screenshots from people trolling me.
Yeah.
I would use it as the header in my newsletter. Like I literally,
That.
you can fucking use everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
You turn it all around. Yeah.
yeah, but again, it's not like, "Ooh, this is happening."
Mm,
Yes, we're in battle mode. It's like, no, we're also in, I had a lot of feelings about it too. I thought, I put my volunteers what felt like in danger. I mean, there was some harassment.
mm,
Again, all these things are way more complicated than a soundbite can allow.
yeah.
Right.
But again, it did get me, huge exposure and a huge book deal.
Amazing.
Amazing. Wow. I'm really, I've got goosebumps. I feel like I'm ready to go do the marathon.
I'm going to take a nap. I'm literally going to take a nap when this is done. I'm never feeling that way.
Two opposite directions for both
Exhausted.
of us,
Just by all the opportunity just from this conversation. Yeah.
right? I mean, Claire, wow, this has been such a fabulous, jaw-dropping conversation with you. You've shared so much with us. If anyone listening is interested, in buying your book, we'll link it in our show notes.
Just a heads up. So it's just
Okay.
you can just buy it on Amazon.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, we're in the midst of redoing our website. So the best place to find me actually would be coachmeclaire.com. Although ladiesgetpaid.com works as well. You can also, find us on all social channels at Ladies Get Paid. And I'm super into these tools I've recently built. One's called the To Done Tracker, and the other one's called the Get Hired Dashboard. One is a productivity tool, and then one is a 6-week daily action plan with scripts, tips, and templates to make your job search easier. It's everything that I've taught in live coaching programs that are expensive, making it extremely affordable. And yes, it's DIY, so you technically don't have me, but you do, because I really took all the live stuff and I made it very methodical and simplified and straightforward to follow. Also, Ladies Get Paid, we've got a free newsletter too. I send it out every week. 50,000 people are on it. I'd love to have, 50,001. So come and sign up, and, I promise it's good.
Awesome. I love it.
I might join the newsletter too. Just, I like to get some inspiration in my inbox every day. Why not? Or every week, however often you do this. Yeah. Fab. Thanks so much for being with us, Claire. This has been super inspiring. I've really loved chatting and hearing your stories. I could definitely spend more time talking to you. So I'm really glad
I have so many stories. I know. I'm right. Yeah. Lots and lots of stories. Also, thank you so much for having me. I love this. And I wish it was happening in, real life. We were getting lunch together.
I know. I hope we can arrange that soon. But again, thank you so much for being on the show, and we will definitely be in touch soon.
Thank you for joining us on the empowering journey at the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our insightful discussions, actionable strategies, and inspiring stories that we break down during each episode. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Leading Ladies Who Lunch on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And remember, the conversations you've heard on this podcast are just the beginning of your journey. Let your voice be heard, inspire change, and continue breaking barriers as you lead with authenticity, resilience, and unwavering determination.
Until next time, keep embracing your leadership potential, challenging the norms, and shaping a better world for women in the workplace. Leading Ladies Who Lunch, empowering women, changing lives.